Welcome to Hashi Rest, a quiet place for those drawn to inexplicable mysteries and slow stories. February settles deep into the northern forest of the United States. Not suddenly and not with force, but with persistence. Snow has been present long enough to smooth the ground into gentle slopes. Trees stand evenly spaced, their branches carrying a weight they no longer resist. The air is cold, but steady, without wind. In the middle of the forest, a river runs through a shallow valley. It is narrow in some places, wider in others, shaped by years of quiet erosion. By this point in winter, it is entirely frozen. No water is visible. No current shows itself beneath the surface. The ice is flat and unbroken from one bank to the other. This is not unusual here. By February, the river is always frozen. Locals expect it. Maps mark the crossing without warning symbols. Footpaths lead directly onto ice and continue on the other side, as they have for decades. The first thing known about this river is simple: the ice does not break. People cross it without pausing. Boots press into the surface and leave no cracks. The ice does not respond to weight, whether light or heavy. Even in warmer years, even during brief thaws, it remains solid. The water beneath seems distant, held in place, unmoving. This has been accepted for a long time. The second thing is noticed only at night. As evening deepens and the forest darkens, the river sometimes begins to reflect a pale light. It appears gradually, spreading along the ice as if the surface is remembering something ahead of time. The brightness is soft, even and without source. At this moment, the moon is not yet visible. Minutes pass before it rises above the tree line. Following its expected path through the sky. The order never changes. The river reflects first. The moon follows later. No one remarks on this anymore. It is simply how the night progresses here. The third thing occurs in between. When the river has brightened and the sky remains dark, the forest becomes still. Sounds fade without direction. Snow does not fall. Branches stop shifting. Animals do not cross the path or move through the undergrowth. This silence that not arrive suddenly. It settles briefly and then lifts once the moon is fully present. These three things are not considered warnings. They are not taught or announced. They are learned through repetition, through passing winters, through quiet observation. The river remains frozen. The light arrives early. The forest holds its breath. And February continues unchanged. It was seen again the following winter. Snow arrived earlier that year, settling thick along the river banks before the cold fully set in. By February, the ice had already formed its familiar surface, smooth and even, carrying the pale marks of passing seasons. A man crossed it at dusk, carrying a pack with no particular urgency. He noticed the brightness along the ice before he noticed the sky. He slowed, not from concern, but from habit. The forest was already quiet. By the time he reached the far bank, the moon was rising behind him. It was seen again years later, during a winter that held longer than expected. The river froze early and stayed that way. Weeks passed with little change. One evening, a pair of footprints appeared along the path leading to the crossing. They stopped briefly at the edge of the ice, then continued straight across. The tracks showed no sign of hesitation. By morning, new snow had erased them. It was seen again when the forest was older. Trees had fallen and been replaced by younger growth. The path shifted slightly to avoid exposed roots. Still, the river held its place. On a clear night in February, the ice brightened before the sky did. The reflection stretched quietly from bend to bend. Minutes later, the moon followed, unchanged in shape or pace. No one stayed to watch for long. Some noticed the order, others did not. Those who did made not attempt to explain it. The timing remained consistent enough that it required no attention. It could be relied upon, like the length of the night or the depth of the snow. Each winter added nothing new. Different people passed through. Different years left their marks. The river did not alter its behavior. The reflection always arrived first. The moon always came after. And when the light settled into its place, the forest remained still, as it had learned to be, until the night resumed its quiet movement forward. In some winters, the river was seen from farther away, from a slight rise in the land. Its surface caught light before the trees did. The brightness appeared as a narrow band, steady and contained, following the shape of the water had carved long before. From that distance, it was easy to mistake it for snow. Only when the moon rose later did the difference become clear. The forest did not respond during the interval. No branches shifted, no sound carried across the frozen ground. The stillness remained even when clouds moved slowly overhead. The silence did not deepen or spread. It stayed limited to the same span of time, as predictable as the river itself. It was seen again at the edge of winter. February was ending. Days had begun to lengthen. During the afternoons, the snow softened slightly under pale sunlight. Still, the river held its surface through the night. When darkness returned, the ice reflected first, as it always had. The moon followed without delay. Those who noticed understood that the sequence did not belong to a single year. It was not tied to temperature or snowfall. It did not respond to the state of the forest. It arrived when it was time, and then it passed. Nothing accumulated. Each occurrence stood alone, separate from the last, identical in form but untouched by memory. The river did not remember the winters before it. The moon did not adjust its path. And when the night resumed its quiet movement, the forest continued, unchanged, into whatever winter came next. The river appears occasionally in records that were never meant to preserve it. A park ranger noted the crossing during a routine winter patrol. The entry included the date, the temperature, and the condition of the trail. The ice was listed as stable. Visibility was clear. No further comment followed. In later years, similar notes appeared nearly identical, written by different hands. None of them mentioned the order of the light and sky. Walkers passing through the forest noticed the stillness more often than the river itself. Some slowed near the crossing, unsure why. Others crossed without awareness, registering only the absence of sound. The silence did not demand attention. It passed before it could be examined. A few spoke of it afterward, briefly. In nearby towns, the river was known only by habit. It froze early. It stayed frozen. People expected the crossing to hold. Those who returned from the forest after nightfall sometimes mentioned how quiet it had been. The comments never lasted long. No one asked questions that required answers. The behavior repeated often enough to be trusted. One winter, a ranger waited longer than usual near the river bank. The ice had already brightened. The sky remained dark. He noted the time, then looked away to adjust his clothes. When he looked back, the moon was already visible. The interval had passed unnoticed. The silence left no trace. In the following years, similar moments occurred. Someone stopped. Someone waited. Someone crossed. No one stayed through the entire night. There was nothing to see once the moon had taken its place. No explanations were offered. The river was not avoided. It was not approached with caution. It was included in maps, in routes, in winter planning. Its behavior did not interfere with use. It asked nothing of those who passed through. Records continued to accumulate quietly. Dates aligned, conditions varied. The sequence remained consistent. The reflection before the moon. The forest fell silent. Then the night resumed. And beyond those brief entries and passing remarks, the river remained where it had always been, repeating what it had learned long ago, without calling attention to itself. Over time, the river became a fixed point rather than an event. Those responsible for the forest learned to account for it without discussion. Winter routes were planned with the crossing included. Equipment checks assumed the ice would hold. No alternative paths were marked. The rivers did not require supervision. Occasionally, someone unfamiliar asked why the ice was trusted so easily. The answer, when given at all, was brief. It always had been. The explanation ended there. In the evenings, lights appeared in distant houses as night settled over the forest. From those windows, the river could not be seen, but its presence shaped the quiet beyond the edge of the town. One clear night, the stillness reached outward. thinning as it moved away from the trees. No one traveled to observe the timing. The reflection continued to arrive first, unnoticed by most. The moon followed in its ordinary way. The forest paused and then released itself back into motion. These moments passed without witnesses more often than not. Nothing accumulated from them. They did not form a pattern that demanded attention. They did not invite preservation. They occurred, and then they were replaced by the next night and the next. And so the river remained part of the winter landscape, not as a mystery to be solved, but as a behavior that repeated itself quietly year after year without needing to be understood. When the intervals arrive, the forest does not change its appearance, it changes its behavior. Branches remain where they are, snow holds its shape, the air keeps its temperature. What shifts is movement, the small motions that usually pass unnoticed, leaves settling, distant creaks, the soft transfer of sound simply do not occur. The river reflects its pale light evenly across the ice. The surface shows no cracks, no variations, no places where the reflection bends or breaks. It stretches uninterrupted from one bank to the other, forming a single plane that appears finished, complete. Standing near the edge, it is difficult to judge distance. The ice does not show depth. It does not suggest what lies beneath it. There is no indication of current or pressure. It behaves less like frozen water and more like a surface placed deliberately into the landscape. During this interval, the forest does not offer cues of progression. Nothing moves from one state to another. Sounds do not begin or end. Even the sense of waiting becomes vague, as there is nothing to measure it against. The moment does not ask to be endured. It simply exists. The silence does not spread outward. It remains contained, held within the same boundaries as the light on the river. Beyond the trees, beyond the forest, the world continues at its usual pace. Here is that note. Footsteps, if present, leave no echo. Breath does not seem louder. The space does not react to presence. It remains indifferent, as if the interval is not a pause but a complete condition of its own. The ice holds this state without strain. No frost forms, no cracks appear. The surface neither tightens nor loosens. It accepts the reflection without distortion, as though it has already adjusted to receive it. When the moon finally rises, the change is subtle. There is no signal marking the end of the interval. The silence sings. Movement resumes without announcement. The forest returns to itself without appearing to have left. And the river remains exactly as it was. For those brief minutes, the forest seemed to rest in a finished form. Nothing appears unfinished or in transition. The trees do not anticipate wind. The snow does not prepare to fold or melt. The river does not suggest motion beneath its surface. Everything present appears to have reached its final position for the night. The light on the ice does not shift. It does not brighten or dim. It does not drift with the passing of clouds. It remains steady and is fixed in place, reflecting not the moon itself, but the idea of its presence held in advance. The absence of sound becomes easier to notice than the silence itself. There is no echo waiting to return, no distant noise preparing to arrive. Even the sense of space feels contained, defined by the trees and frozen water between them. The forest does not expand beyond what can be seen. Time does not signal itself here. There is no clear beginning to the interval, and no clear ending. If someone were to arrive midway through, there would be nothing to indicate how long it had already lasted, or how long it might remain. The moment does not orient itself around arrival or departure. The ice continues to hold without effort. Its surface remained unchanged, smooth and unmarked, as if untouched by weather or season. The reflection rests on it lightly, without pressure, without resistance. And when the forest begins to move again, it does so without memory of having stopped, leaving the river exactly as it was, waiting for the next night to repeat what has already been learned. The moon rises as it always has. It clears the line of trees without hesitation, pale and unchanged, following a path that was set long before the forest took its current shape. Its light does not fall directly onto the river at first. It spreads across the upper branches, touches the snow slightly, and then settles into the open space above the ice. Nothing responds to its arrival. The river does not brighten further. The reflection does not shift or sharpen. The surface remains exactly as it was during the interval, already prepared, already complete. The moon does not adjust its pace. It does not slow to examine the frozen water below. It does not linger. It continues forward, steady and indifferent, offering no indication that the river holds any significance. From one night to the next, it appears the same. Its distance does not change. Its shape does not vary beyond the expected cycle. It does not repeat itself more carefully over this place than any other. If it observes, it does so without altering its course. The forest accepts its presence without reaction. Branches do not sway toward it. Shadows do not deepen. The snow reflects its light faintly and then releases it. The silence had already passed. Movement has already resumed. The moon has always arrived after the river's reflection. This order had not been negotiated. It has not been tested. It remains intact without effort, as if both have agreed, without communication, to follow their own timing. Night continues. The moon travels onward, eventually leaving the river behind. Its light thins among the trees. The forest returns to its usual sounds. The ice holds its surface unchanged. And when the moon is gone from view, the river remains, ready to reflect again long before the sky answers. Winter loosens its hold gradually. Days lengthen. Snow along the banks begin to thin. The forest shifts almost imperceptibly, releasing small sounds that had been held back for months. Streams elsewhere begin to move again. Paths softened underfoot. The river remains. Even as temperatures rise, it holds its frozen surface longer than expected. When it finally releases the ice, it does so without disturbance. The water moves again, quietly, and it always has, leaving no trace of what it carried through the winter nights. Spring passes, summer follows. The river flows within its banks, reflecting leaf, sky, and passing light in the ordinary ways. There is nothing about it during these months that invites attention. It blends into the forest, becoming part of the landscape continuous motion. Then the year turns, cold returns, snow settles, the forest narrows back into its winter form. By February, the river freezes again, smoothing itself into the shape it has learned to keep. The sequence returned without announcement. The ice holds. The reflections arrive early. The forest falls silent. The moon follows later, unchanged. No effort is made to observe the first night it happens again. No marker is placed. No one waits for confirmation. The river resumes its behavior as though nothing has interrupted it. Year after year, the pattern remains. It does not weaken. It does not expand. It does not conclude. The forest continues to grow and thin and grow again. People pass through and do not. Records are kept and replaced. Winters vary in length and severity. The river stays. And when February settles once more into the northern forest, the ice prepares itself. The light arrives ahead of the source, and the moon continues its path, watching without pause, as it always has.